Hello guys and girls, and welcome to today's video. The purpose of this video today is to go over the introduction paragraph that I asked you to write on Friday. Watching this video is optional, but I am proud of you for choosing to be proactive and getting some extra help with this assignment. First thing we're going to do is we are quickly going to read through the article since it has been several days since you guys took a look at this. So you need to turn your introduction paragraph paper to the side that has the article and follow along with me. Should school start later? Experts say a later schedule could be good for your health by Maggie Pierce. Your phone shrieks. Confused and groggy, you open your eyes. Surely it isn't time to get up already. You tap snooze and sink back into dreamland until your dad knocks on the door. Wake up, he calls. The bus will be here in 10 minutes. You groan. 5 more minutes. Please, please, please. If this sounds familiar, you aren't alone. Before the pandemic, nearly 70% of teens weren't getting enough sleep. During COVID, things were different. Many teens were able to sleep in because remote classes started later, didn't require a commute, or gave students flexibility in their schedules. But now that in-person school has resumed, teens across America are once again battling their alarms, and debate has reignited. Should school start later? The science of sleep. In the US, the average start time for middle and high school is a few minutes after 8 a.m. It hasn't always been this way, though. A century ago, most schools started around 9 a.m. Then, in the 1970s, districts began shifting to earlier schedules for teens, with elementary age kids starting later. This saved districts money because it reduced the number of buses needed. When start times are staggered, the same buses can make multiple trips. Otherwise, you need enough buses to transport all elementary, middle, and high school students at once. Today, we know much more about teens and the science of sleep. Scientists now understand that adolescents experience something called phase delay. Here's how it works. At night, our bodies release a hormone called melatonin that makes us sleepy. Around middle school, this melatonin release gets pushed back by 1 or 2 hours. As a result, many teens have a hard time falling asleep before 11 p.m. If you have to be at school by 8 a.m., it can be tough, if not impossible, to get the 8 to 10 hours of sleep you need to be healthy. And that's a problem. If teens aren't getting enough sleep, it's going to impact every aspect of their life, says Dr. Lisa Meltzer, a sleep psychologist. Indeed, being exhausted can make you cranky and sad. It can make it harder to concentrate, sit still, and learn, and it can weaken your immune system and impede your ability to make good decisions. Given how critical sleep is to your well-being, it's no surprise many experts recommend that middle and high schools start no earlier than 8:30 a.m. In 2017, Cherry Creek School District in Colorado pushed back start times for its middle and high schools. Since then, students have said they are less sleepy during the school day and participate more in first period. Meltzer, who led a study of Cherry Creek students, found that kids were sleeping more and they stopped falling asleep doing their homework. Over the past few years, hundreds of other schools have also experimented with later start times. The results have been promising, with students feeling more alert and fewer incidents of tardiness. If later start times are good for teens, why doesn't everyone make the switch? Unfortunately, it's not so simple. For one thing, starting later means ending later, which leaves less time for after-school activities like sports, dance, and music. And for outdoor activities, this is especially problematic during the winter when daylight hours are limited. Later dismissal times could also cut into after-school jobs and create scheduling conflicts for families. In Cherry Creek, some families say they have less time in the evening for homework and dinner. Transportation is another obstacle. Later start times could require some districts to invest in additional buses and drivers, which can be costly, and many parents might not be able to drive their kids to school before work. Of course, early start times aren't the only reason that teens are exhausted. Many things can get in the way of a good night's sleep, such as caffeine, stress, overscheduling, and too much screen time. Still, the benefits of a later start time are compelling. So what do you think? Should more schools start later? Here is the prompt that you guys were asked to respond to. It does say to read the prompt and then write an introduction paragraph. So remember, all I was looking for was one paragraph, and it was based off of this prompt. In 2017, Cherry Creek School District in Colorado pushed back start times for its middle and high schools. Since then, students have said they are less sleepy during the school day and participate more in first period. You're going to notice that the next sentence that I'm about to read to you is underlined. If I were you, I would probably underline it on your copy of the prompt. Over the past few years, hundreds of schools have also experimented with later start times. The LaRue County School Board is considering a similar policy. Is this a good idea? Should school start later? Again, you're going to notice that that's underlined. You might want to underline it on your copy. Write an essay in which you debate this topic. Include evidence from the provided passage to support your ideas. Just as a reminder, you are only being asked to write an introduction paragraph. And as you are rewriting, I'm expecting you to do this on a piece of notebook paper. So if you don't already have some notebook paper, you may want to go to the front of the room and get some out of the orange box before you move on. When we are thinking about an introduction paragraph, there are three things that we're going to be writing in our paragraph. We have the hook, we have the background information, and we have the thesis statement. The hook is the very first thing that your audience is going to be reading. There are a few different options that you could have written for your hook. You could have started with a question. You could have started with an anecdote, which is like a really short story. Or you could have started with a fact. And remember, facts are not something that you can come up with on your own. It would have to be something that you found in the article. I personally like question hooks the most because I think they're the easiest. And sometimes if you look carefully, you might find that there is a question embedded in the prompt that you can use as your hook. So if I were you, I would work smarter and not harder here. And I would either borrow the question that was in the writing task, should school start later? Or you can use the sentence starter that you see here on the screen, should the school day blank, and you would fill in the blank. Either way is fine. Just make sure that you do end with a question mark. You need to pause the video and write your hook right now, and then when you're finished, you can come back to the video. After your hook, the next part of the introduction paragraph is your background information, and this is usually the part that I find students tend to struggle with the most. The background information is the biggest part of your introduction. It's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 3 to 5 sentences, and it's going to answer 3 questions. The first question is, what is the debate? In other words, what are people disagreeing on? Your next sentence is going to answer the question of what do those in favor argue. So those who agree with the debate, tell me that they agree and then maybe give me 1 or 2 reasons why. And then the last part of the background information, the last question that you should answer is what do those opposed argue? So people who are against it, why do they feel that way? A great way to structure your paragraph or your background information in this paragraph would be with the sentence starters that you see here on the screen. Over the past few years, many schools have experimented with blank. I want to remind you that I encouraged you to do some underlining in our prompt earlier, and it is perfectly fine to take this information from the prompt and include it in your introduction paragraph. Those in favor of later start times believe blank. And this blank, you might want to go back to the text or maybe even to the prompt if you can find something in the prompt and give me 1 reason why the prompt or why the passage says that some people think having schools start at a later time is a good idea. So we've addressed what is the argument, what do those in favor argue, and now we're going to address what those opposed argue. A great way to start this sentence would be, on the other hand, those opposed argue blank, and your job would be to fill in that blank with a reason why some people think later start times are a bad idea. Remember, that might possibly come from the prompt, or you might need to go back to the text to find that. Either way, you need to pause the video, use these sentence starters, and once you have your background information written, you can resume the video. After you write your background information, you're going to move on to your thesis statement. I want you to remember that the thesis statement is the most important part of your entire essay. A couple things about the thesis statement. It should restate the question being asked. So what is this prompt asking you to write about? You're going to restate that question. It should include 2 key ideas. So 2 things, 2 reasons why you feel the way that you do. And then it should not include any personal pronouns. So your thesis statement should not say, I think, I feel, I believe, in my opinion. Instead, it might look something like this. LaRue County Schools should, if you think this is a good idea, or should not, if you think this is a bad idea, have a later start time because blank and blank. As you are writing your thesis statement, you can use this sentence starter. And then in the blanks, you need to give me 2 reasons that should come from the text, 2 things that were supported by the text for why you think our schools should start later or our schools should not start later. I am going to go ahead and conclude the video, but you can pause to copy this thesis statement if you need to. Just make sure that when you get to this part right here, you are either putting should or should not. And then of course in the blanks, you need to give me your 2 reasons for why you feel that way.